Speaker recognizes the honourable member for St. George's, Humber.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's great to rise and participate in this debate today. I think it's a very useful debate, and for the people at home maybe who are just tuning in and not familiar with what's happening here. Today is Wednesday. It's Private Members' Day. We take the time to debate a motion that's put forward by a private member of the House, someone who's not in the Cabinet. And we have an opportunity to sort of discuss and bring attention to an issue. These debates are great opportunities to give increased profile to an issue and to have to gauge the support for a concept that's coming forward. And so it's very appropriate that the member for Terra Nova has brought forward this type of motion here today, because it gives us an opportunity to have some discussion about social enterprises and the significance that they play in our province, and the significance, increasing significance they could play in our province as well. So it's great to be here to have the opportunity to debate on this kind of issue. So it's an important part of these private members' motions are an important part of the proceedings here today. So social enterprises, it's this motion specifically relates to item 2.5 in the action item 2.5 in the recently released document, The Way Forward. And so the Way Forward document outlines a plan for reorganizing government to address some of the economic, social, and fiscal challenges that we face. And the plan outlines specific actionable items with a timeline and measurable outcomes. So it's a significant piece of policy direction that this action item is part of. And this plan is important in that it sets a direction that can be sort of recognized by people who work with government, by the public, and by other agencies in society as well. So it's an important document, and it's an important sort of part of that document. And there are some principles that are sort of outlined in that document that I guess relate to the possibilities that can be generated through social enterprise. And some of the guiding principles for the way forward were we will do better with less. We can do better by spending less. We will collaborate. We'll collaborate across government, departments in government. We'll collaborate between the sectors of the economy. Collaborating is another sort of principle of the way forward. And we will also challenge ourselves to do better, challenge ourselves to do things in new ways. So challenging ourselves as a province and as a people, those are some guiding principles laid out in the Way Forward document. So one of the items under building a stronger economic foundation is we will increase the number of social enterprises in Newfoundland and Labrador, and it's one of the action items from this plan. So it's not surprising, as the member opposite who spoke mentioned, that it had been an item in their policy books. It's also an item in our red book in the last election that we would increase focus on social enterprises in society. So, and as previous speakers have mentioned, it's a concept that's a little difficult to define. Some people use narrower definitions, others use broad. But I guess really the World Forum on Social Enterprises have a working definition that sort of is fairly broad. It says that pursuing social development using business methods. So others have defined it as earning revenue and achieving social or environmental missions. So there are different ways of defining it. but generally speaking, it's using business, pursuing social development through business means, Madam Speaker. So let's look at some examples of social enterprises. One example that I want to talk a little bit about, and I'll be cognizant of the time, but is Choices for Youth here in St. John's. They train people who are often hard to employ or in renovating, employ local youth in retrofitting and renovating low-income housing. So through their efforts, the way they operate, they offer training to hard-to-employ people sometimes, and they also increase the benefit of social housing here in the St. John's area. So it's very beneficial sort of all around in terms of the way they operate. Another example of, and it's already been mentioned here in the House, is Stella's Circle, which operates the Hungry Heart Cafe. A similar sort of model. They offer training and employment to people who are often hard to have a difficulty finding employment. And anyone who hasn't been to the Hungry Heart Cafe down at Rawls Crossing, I certainly would encourage people to go there. The food is great. Everything is wonderful. And you're also supporting a social enterprise that does a lot of good work here in the community. I've been there many times, and I know other members of the House have been there as well. So the Hungry Heart Cafe, very good example of a social enterprise. I'll just name a few other social enterprises here in the province. For example, the Canadian Hard of Hearing Association does some work in that regard. Avalon Employment, St. Anthony Basin Resources, child care facilities around the province. Some of them are organized in this sort of social enterprise manner. Ambulance services in some areas of the province are organized in this way. Gas stations in some places, recycling efforts are also organized in this sort of way. They use business practices to promote a social or environmental practice. So it's a very important a contribution that these type of enterprises make to the province. And it's important to, I guess, recognize that social enterprises are nothing new in this province, right? Some of the early cooperatives in the 1800s could be defined as social enterprises, and some people say the earliest social enterprise in the province was established in Madam Speaker's district that she represents in Red Bay, Labrador, by Sir Wilfrid Grenfell in 1895 as part of the Grenfell mission there. And others would say that the cooperative on Fogo Island was a good example of a rural social enterprise, and the processes that they used in setting up that cooperative, a very good example of social enterprises as well. So we have a strong history of social enterprises in this province, but we still have a lot of potential, unused potential, undeveloped potential that we could be very beneficial to the province. So those are that's the objective of this effort, and something that this motion is reinforcing is the how can we lead to the establishment of more social enterprises and more benefit for the economy. So there are a few challenges that people who want to establish social enterprises sort of face as they work to do the things they do. So one of the challenges is access to capital. So is in the terms of the way government organizes its funding programs and other lending institutions offer their funding programs, and the availability of capital to these social enterprises. Other ways, we just went through the process of changing our procurement legislation here in this province. So that's another area that has the potential to have an impact on social enterprises in this province, because it allows the province to look into the terms of community benefit. Rather than just the lowest price, we look at the best value. So it's very encouraging that, you know, some of the changes that we made to legislation such as the Procurement Act will have a possibly have a positive benefit to social enterprises in this province. And also, I think a challenge is the public perception and the way we think of the different roles and that organizations play in the province. So those are some of the challenges that we face in terms of the way we educate people. I know Memorial University, one of the things they're doing is they're offering courses on social enterprises as part of the undergraduate business program and the graduate program in business in terms of social enterprises. So we're getting, it's a concept that's getting better established, more people are doing. One of the things that I did before I ran for public office was teach at the university. And one of the courses I taught there was change management in the MBA program at Memorial. And I was struck by how young people thought differently about the idea of jobs and the work they were doing. Many of them were very entrepreneurial, and many of them were entrepreneurial in a way that they wanted to have a lifestyle sort of job, something that they were passionate about. They wanted to pursue something they were interested in. So social enterprises was something that was just part of the way they thought. And I think the whole idea of pursuing opportunities to encourage social enterprises in this province is a great thing. I think it's something that we as a government have to facilitate and encourage. So I encourage all members to support this motion. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.